Honestly, as far as 24 hours go, for Manchester United fans, this is going to be a seriously memorable one. First, the correct decision for Ronaldo to be sacked by the club moved on. We begin a new era when we come back from the World Cup. Then, out of nowhere, on Tuesday night, we hear news, reports, murmurs that the Glazers will be considering selling Manchester United. I'm like, nah, I've seen this before. I know this before. It wasn't. It was the real deal. It was not a drill. And tonight, we've got reports coming from Tom Morgan. Tom Morgan, sorry, not Tom Morgs. Tom spent too much time with him in Portugal. Tom Morgan and James Ducker from the Telegraph saying that Jim Ratcliffe will be bidding for Manchester United. What I'm going to do here is run through the full article here, going to react to it with you, run through the news, analyse each point, have a little discussion about Ineos, about Ratcliffe, about what he said before about buying Manchester United. But this is it, people. This is the conversation we've been wanting to have for so long, and we're starting to have it. And for a lot of people, Jim Ratcliffe is the ideal owner. What does the article say? Let's run through it now. They're saying that from an exclusive that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will bid for Manchester United. The billionaire's renewed interest in buying United is said to be serious, with the Glazers seeking reinvestment of a partial or full sale. Now, this is what the article says. Sir Jim Ratcliffe will bid for Manchester United after the Glazers put the club on the market, Telegraph Sport can reveal. Ratcliffe, who is one of Britain's richest men and a United fan, had been the first billionaire to declare interest when rumours first surfaced of a potential sale over the summer. The owner of Ineos will now table a fresh approach, although he is wary about overpaying, as insiders suggest the Glazers are looking for a price in excess of £5 billion. Now, you'll know that full well that this morning here on United People's TV in the live stream, we covered the story from, I believe it was Paul Joyce and Matt Lawton from the Times, suggesting a price in the region of 6 to 8 billion. And we all agreed that was pretty overpriced. Chelsea went for in the region of 2.5 billion, 4.5 when you include the investment in the club, XYZ. Now, Manchester United certainly is a far bigger club than that, but the idea of 6 to 8 billion was a lot. Now, Jim Ratcliffe's got the money, right? Before we read on further in this article, Jim Ratcliffe, I covered this earlier, right? When I did a video on who Manchester United's potential owners could be. It wouldn't be Jim Ratcliffe buying Manchester United. It would be the Ineos group, of which he is the owner. They would go down as a sports franchise investment of the Ineos group. They wouldn't be going down as Jim Ratcliffe's club, although he would go down as the owner. They have revenues of 65 billion, all right? 65. And we know full well that they're invested in Mercedes, they're invested in Nice, they've got a cycling team, a sailing team, a rugby team. They've got a big sports franchise. They have got the money. Now, it might not be the scale of the money of like the Dubai Investment Fund, but when it comes to ideal owners, you're going to struggle to look past Britain's richest man, who was a Manchester United fan, grew up 10 miles from Old Trafford, and he wants to buy Manchester United. If we're talking about somebody who's going to look after the culture and the ethos, there's a statement from MUST, Man United Sports Trust, and Andy Mitten that I agree with. We need somebody who's going to take the club forward in the right direction and not just lose vision of all of that. Jim Ratcliffe is that man. Let's read on in this article. Saying here, Ratcliffe previously contacted the Glazers in August, but concluded at the time a deal appeared unlikely. He also has experience about dealing with Rain Group, as obviously he put the bid in for Chelsea. Now, that's an important point because, of course, Rain Group have been appointed by the Glazers to be in control of selling Manchester United, and they're going to be brokering deals. Ratcliffe put in a bid to buy Chelsea, a last-minute bid. Everyone looked at it and went, is that really Jim Ratcliffe trying to buy Chelsea? Or is that just him kind of flexing and saying, look, I'm here, people. I want to buy a Premier League club. That's kind of what we wanted to believe. Maybe it was the truth now that all this has emerged. But yeah, it's interesting that he has dealt with Rain Group. And also, James Ducker and Tom make a very good point here. A little bit further down the line, because I've spoken to you about due diligence and how long that can take. We'll get into that in a little bit. There is a concern that Rain will be pushing for a price beyond United's natural value. Telegraph understands Ratcliffe's failed bid to buy Chelsea over the summer was late because he'd been waiting for the price to drop. I'm losing my voice still. Here's a joke. I still sound like absolute shit. Sorry about that, ladies and gents. Now, that is, I suppose, a fair concern that we can have, and a point that has been raised about the actual overall money that Jim Ratcliffe would have. Now, that, in my opinion, doesn't come down to the fact that Ineos wouldn't have enough money to buy Manchester United. It's about whether or not Manchester United would represent the investment that would give the required return. They would have the money to buy the club. But what's the point if you're going to do an investment and you're going to spend 8 billion on something that you might never make any money from an investment perspective? I'm speaking purely from a business perspective here. And that is why we saw this article that came out, 10, 15 days ago? As soon as Liverpool went up for sale, we heard that Jim Ratcliffe was ruling himself out of buying any Premier club, saying that League One offers better value. This is what there you go. Our position, this is what a spokesman from Ineos said. Our position has developed since the summer, and we are now focusing our efforts in Nice and raising our ambitions for the club to make them into a top-tier club in France to compete with BSG. This would represent much better value for our investment than buying one of the top Premier League clubs. And now we've got a full 360. No, a full 180. 360 would be the same position. Ratcliffe wants to buy the club. Let's go down this. It's a really quite an in-depth article. United were the only club who could change the mind of Ratcliffe, an Oldham lad, after his company told Telegraph Sport, as I've just read there, he was focusing on Nice. Taking over the Old Trafford club would not necessarily mean that Ineos would have to sell Nice, which has signed several English players in recent. I think they signed Aaron Ramsey. However, they would not be able to play each other in Europe under UEFA rules. That's interesting. Didn't know that. Look, let's go down here. Ratcliffe first said in August that his Ineos group would have been interested. And let's run through it. And you'll remember, of course, that he's been questioned. He's been interviewed by Manchester United. And this is what he said in said interview.
They'd rather like the idea of you trying to buy Manchester United because they think you would run it differently. Firstly, do you think you might? Is there a chance of that? And secondly, would you run it?
Might I run it differently, or might I run it?
Might you run it differently? I'm sure you'd run it.
I think the answer about performance on Manchester United is a simple one, really, that the biggest correlation in success in football is money, without question. It's not the only correlation, because you've got outliers like Brighton. Okay, but the biggest correlation by far is if you've got the highest revenues, you can afford the best players, you play the best football. Yeah? And Manchester United is one of those, it was one of those top three clubs. You had the two in Spain, Madrid and Barca, and you had Manchester United, and they all had revenues of about 800 million. There's a few more have joined that club now, of course, because you've got Bayern Munich, you've got PSG, you've got, I can hardly say it, Manchester City. And Liverpool are a little bit closer, but Manchester United are not playing in that league. They're not playing in the league of those other teams at the moment, and they haven't done for quite some years now, really, since Sir Alex stepped down. So something is not, they're not firing on all cylinders. So I think that would be my point on performance, really, and
would you like to come back for another? Do you think there's a possibility you might acquire it at some point?
Well, I think I'm a lifelong Manchester United fan, and I was there in '99, that most remarkable match in '99 when in Barcelona. So that's sort of deeply etched in my mind. But Manchester United is owned by the Glazer family, whom I have met. I've met Joel and Avram, and they are the nicest people, I have to say.
I forgot he said that. Let's get off that. We don't need to hear about you complimenting the Glazers there, mate. Come on, let's not go crazy. But Jim has always registered an interest in buying Manchester United. He's always said that the Glazers don't want to sell Manchester United. That position has now changed, and Jim Ratcliffe's permission? He's got permission. His position has changed. Jim Ratcliffe is going to put a bid in to buy Manchester United. This is a story coming from James Ducker and from Tom Morgan from the Telegraph tonight exclusively. This is major news. For a lot of fans, and probably myself included there, I think he'd be the dream. I think he'd be somebody who would invest well in Manchester United, somebody who would genuinely want to see Manchester United back on top. Yes, he might not have as much money as others, but there's a deep affection there. And after, 17 years of just being treated as such a cash cow, it is the polar opposite. And an absolute dream. I want to know what you think in the comments below. My video still stands that I did earlier. I took a look at all prospective owners. I took a look at Jim Ratcliffe as one of them. I took a look at the Dubai Investment Fund. I spoke about all the American potential owners. But Jim Ratcliffe, the first here to throw his name in the hat publicly, maybe not himself, but the first we're hearing of an official bid in the region of $5 billion, including debt, which I think is a pretty reasonable offer for Manchester United. Maybe it won't be enough for the Glazers, but this is the beginning of what could be a bidding war for Manchester United. Jim Ratcliffe wants it. Who else wants it more? I suppose we're going to find out. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe this could move a little bit faster than I really expected. You let me know what you think in the comments below, as you always do. And hopefully my voice comes back tomorrow. I'm done sounding like this, seriously.